All right, let's pull back the curtain on something we see every single day, something that shapes our world in hidden ways. The survey. You see them everywhere, right? Political polls, customer feedback forms, you name it. We are just bombarded with data from these things. But here's the deal, not all surveys are created equal. Some are, these incredible scientific instruments. Others, they're basically just digital junk mail. So how on earth do you tell the difference? Well, to figure that out, we need a way to judge them. And lucky for us, the science of surveys actually gives us a really powerful framework for separating the good from the bad. Okay, so the very first thing you gotta get is that a high-quality survey isn't just art, and it's definitely not luck. It's a science. And more specifically, it's the science of systematically hunting down and minimizing every single possible source of error, all to get as close to the truth as humanly possible. Researchers actually have a name for this whole approach. It's called the Total Survey Error Framework, or TSE. You can think of it like a master blueprint for building a good survey. It starts by admitting, hey, no survey is ever going to be perfect. But it gives us a clear, systematic way to look at all the different ways a survey can be wrong and then fight back against them. The TSE framework really stands on 4 big pillars. First, you've got coverage and sampling. Those are all about making sure you're talking to the right people in the first place. Then there's non-response, which deals with the people who don't answer. And finally, you have measurement, which is all about asking the right questions in the right way. So let's start with that first big challenge, finding the right people. So how exactly do researchers go about finding the right people to talk to? It really all comes down to those first 2 cornerstones we just mentioned, coverage and sampling. Everything, and I mean everything, starts with what's called a sampling frame. Simply put, that's the master list of people you're going to draw your sample from. So if you want to survey all the software developers in the United States, your dream sampling frame would be a perfect, complete, totally up-to-date list of every single one of them. But here's the catch. Those perfect lists, they almost never exist. And that leads to probably the most common error in all of polling, something called undercoverage. If your master list of developers is just, say, a membership list for one professional group, you've automatically left out every single developer who isn't a member. They have a 0% chance of being picked. Your results are already biased before you've even asked a single question. Now, once you have your list, how you pick people from it is absolutely critical. The gold standard is what we call probability sampling. This means every single person on your list has a known and importantly non-zero chance of being selected, usually through some kind of randomization. The other path is non-probability sampling, like those person-on-the-street interviews you see on the news. It's way easier for sure, but you can't legitimately generalize what you find to the whole population. It's just a snapshot of whoever was convenient to ask. And you can really see the tough choices researchers have to make here. Simple random sampling, that's the purest method, but it needs that perfect, almost mythical, complete list of everyone. A convenient sample is quick, it's cheap, but it can be full of bias. Quota sampling tries to be a bit smarter, making sure you get the right number of people from different groups. But who you pick within those groups, well, that's still not random. Okay, but let's just imagine for a second that you pulled it off. You got the perfect sample. That means you're all set, right? Nope. It could all be for nothing if you ask the wrong questions. This gets us into the huge challenge of measurement. The Pew Research Center really put it perfectly. They said that all that hard work to get an accurate random sample is just totally wasted if the questions themselves are ambiguous or biased. You're building on a shaky foundation and the whole thing can just collapse. Let me show you just how much wording matters with a real-world example. Back in 2003, Pew asked Americans a simple question. Would you favor taking military action in Iraq? 68% said yes. But then they asked a different group the same question, but they added one little clause, even if it meant U.S. forces might suffer thousands of casualties. Support absolutely plummeted down to 43%. That is a 25-point difference based on just a handful of words. Wording is everything. So why is getting the wording right so hard? Well, it's because when you answer a survey question, your brain is actually doing a ton of work. It's a 4-step process. First, you have to understand what the question is even asking. Then, you have to search your memory for the relevant info. After that, you form some kind of judgment or opinion. And finally, you have to figure out how to map that judgment onto the answer choices you've been given. A bad question can cause a breakdown at any one of those 4 steps. So even with a perfect sample and perfectly written questions, there is one final massive hurdle: the people themselves. This is where we run into things like non-response and all the little biases that make us human. A low response rate isn't really the problem in itself. The real problem, the non-response error, happens when the people who don't answer are systematically different from the ones who do. Think about it. If you survey developers about a new coding tool and only the people who absolutely love it or totally hate it bother to reply, you've completely missed the huge quiet majority in the middle. Your data's totally skewed. And even when people do respond, they don't always tell the absolute truth. There's something called social desirability bias, which is really just our natural human tendency to want to look good. We all do it. People might say they vote or go to church more than they really do, or maybe underreport behaviors they think are frowned upon, all because they want to present a better version of themselves. So how do researchers fight this and encourage people to be honest? Well, a big part of it is making clear promises about privacy. But, and this is a huge one, there's a critical difference between anonymity and confidentiality. Anonymity means no one, not even the researcher, can link you to your answers. Confidentiality means the researcher can identify you, but they promise to keep your identity and data totally secure. Promising one when you're actually doing the other isn't just sloppy, it's a major ethical problem. Okay, so we've gone through coverage, sampling, measurement, non-response. We've seen all these different landmines a survey can step on. So what's the big takeaway here? Why does wrestling with all these different types of error actually matter? And this right here is the single most important idea to take away from all of this. A good survey is not one that has zero error. That's impossible, that's a fantasy. A great survey is one where the researchers have knowingly, deliberately, and systematically fought to minimize every single type of error we've talked about. They all affect each other. A confusing question can make more people quit. A bad sample can't be saved by great questions. You have to fight the battle on all fronts at once. And underneath this entire scientific struggle is a moral one. Good researchers are guided by a core set of ethical principles. Things like respecting the people who participate, a commitment to doing no harm, and ensuring that the whole process is fair. This ethical framework is what guides them through all of the difficult decisions and trade-offs they have to make. Look, the goal here isn't to turn you into a survey scientist overnight. It's to make you a smarter, more critical consumer of information. By understanding all the potential ways a survey can go wrong, you can start to ask the right questions about all the data that's thrown at you every single day. So really, it all just boils down to a simple 4-part mental checklist. The 4 cornerstones: coverage, sampling, non-response, and measurement. You can use it every single time you see a poll. This isn't just about spotting bad surveys. It's also about learning to appreciate the incredible amount of work that goes into a truly good one. So the next time a poll flashes across your screen, you'll know what to do. Ask yourself, who exactly did they talk to? How did they pick them? Who didn't answer? And what did the questions really say? Now you know what to look for.